Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to Underground Cinema. We're coming up very close to the award ceremony, which is in November. And at the moment, what we're doing is we're interviewing a lot of the nominees that have been. We recently announced the nominees there a couple of weeks back. And with us today, Tony Kelly is with us. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Dave. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Now, Tony, you've been nominated for 2 awards this year. Your feature film has been nominated Best Independent Feature Film, and you've also picked up a Rising Star Award. So that's fantastic news. Congratulations.
Yeah, over the moon, Dave. So thanks to yourself and all the lads involved. Absolutely over the moon with the 2 nominations.
The film is fantastic, Tony. It really is, and I can remember when the posters were up all over the place for the cinema run, which was fantastic, because what's happened here is we're after seeing an independent feature film getting a 6-week run nationwide in some of the bigger cinemas. That's a fantastic achievement. You must be delighted with that, Tony.
It's insane, David. It almost, it's a year on now. It's actually only a year, I think 2 weeks ago, when it was released initially nationwide. And it's almost like a dream. It's mad to think, that Odeon, Omniplex, Movies all these cinema chains that had my little film that we made for small money here in Waterford, nationwide, the chart in the UK top 40 box office chart when it came out, and it's just mad. It's mad.
Yeah, like you've lived with the character of Gar Campion for over a decade. Went from a web series to stage and now to film. I mean, how is Gar involved? The character Gar Campion that you play in the film, how is Gar evolved through these different mediums? And what was it like bringing him to life in a feature film?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask me that, because I was thinking about this myself not so long ago. That when I originally did the web series, I would like to think maybe Gar was sillier is maybe the right word, maybe more on the nose, funny about stuff, but he was quite one-dimensional. There wasn't a whole lot there other than here's this buffoon almost, and I think as the web series evolved, we did 5 episodes originally, and then an extra episode in New York about 3 years after the original one came out. I think in the 5th episode, which was the season finale of the 4th season, I kind of dived more into Gar as a human being rather than just as a joke, if that makes sense. And
yeah, it does.
I think then, yeah, I'd written the screenplay around 2017 or 2018. And he was starting to take shape on the page there as, listen, he's still a buffoon, don't get me wrong, but there's a heart there, and maybe I think I delved more into why he is this way, what's making him tick. And then when it became very frustrating to get the film made, and there was talk of doing a series in the UK and in Ireland, and it never quite got off the ground. And then I thought maybe we could make a feature, whether it be through some government bodies or through some independent funding. I mean, that got so frustrating and it kept getting knocked. I said, I'm just going to do this as a one-man show and see where it goes. But I think that one-man show really kind of added more layers to Gar. That's where he really became a living, breathing human being rather than, as I said, a one-note kind of a character. And I have a lot to thank with Jim Nolan, who's a very well-known playwright from Waterford. He's very well-known all over Ireland, playwright and director. He directed the one-man show, and Pat Daly as well helped me put the show on stage. He's a brilliant writer, Pat Daly from Waterford. I'd had the screenplay. I didn't know how to. I've never written for theatre before. I've performed theatre. I've never written it. So I had this screenplay. I said to Pat, how do I get this from a screen to a stage? Pat helped, but Jim, in the rehearsal room with Jim for a month, I understood that Gar was a person, I think, and seeing him on screen then and performing, as the lead actor, I suppose, over the 4 weeks, I suppose, of whatever it was that the whole shoot took. It was hard to let him go almost, Dave, at the end then,
Yeah, like, I mean, after years, of your script changes, your production delays, and your stage show, um, was it during lockdown that you made the decision? Look, right, this is it. This is the time that we're going to have to turn the Hurler into a reality. We're going to turn it into a film. Was that around the time that you made that decision?
Yeah, 100%, Dave. I originally made the decision to turn it into a film around 2017. I did a film called Writing Home. That I played the lead role in. I think it was the last Film-Base feature before Film-Base shut down. And I was watching what Film-Base were doing at the time. And I was like, here's these group of people cobbling together with some very talented actors. And the cast of that was, excluding myself, Caoimhe O'Malley, Geraldine McAlinden, Juliette Crosby, to name but a few, an incredible cast, and the crew. And I was like, they're making this film off their own backs, essentially. This can be done. So that's when I wrote the script. But then right before lockdown, I was rehearsing the Hurler stage play, but I was also shooting a feature called The Tale of Billy O.C., which was actually a part of this last year.
Yeah.
Pete Harris and the guys at Diceman Productions. And I saw yet again that a film doesn't need a multi-million euro budget to get made, and I guess it was when we were doing Billy O.C. with the guys from Diceman Productions that I thought, if I teamed up with these guys again, we could possibly make the Hurler together. And thankfully, that's what ended up happening. But it obviously took the lockdown to pass for us to actually get there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like Pete Harris and the guys from Diceman. I mean, these guys are absolutely fantastic guys to team up with. We screened the Tale of Billy O.C. last year. I know you were in it as well. Tony, you played a role in the film. It was a super film. The production values were through the roof because it's a period piece. It's set back in, if I remember rightly, back in the 60s, 70s, the 70s. The costumes were amazing, and it got nominated for a lot of awards at Underground Cinema last year. So you're definitely in with the right team. I have the trailer here, Tony. Let's just play the trailer just to give people an idea of what the film actually looks like. So we'll just stick it on now.
Today I'm talking to, well, perhaps Ireland's greatest ever hurler. Definitely Ireland's most infamous hurler, Gar Campion. I see you've got the documentary crew here. You're probably as famous at this stage for your off-the-field antics as your on-the-field heroics. The whole relationship between you and the legendary hurling coach, Billy Byrne.
I've got this covered. The only thing that you've got covered is your head with that stupid fucking hat.
Now, on to this failed drug test business. As you all know, I'm a man about town. A playboy. I hang out with models. My girlfriend is a model. Models use cocaine.
He's a fucking imbecile.
Who keeps the roof over your head?
You support your lifestyle. Not much good sponsoring a fucking hurler who's fucking being banned from playing fucking hurling now, is there?
What was it you said to me about rebuilding my reputation? Making amends or something?
I got onto an old pal of mine down in Waterford who suggested a project to me that'd be perfect for Gar. You're going to Waterford, Gar, okay? Begin your coaching career, right?
Obviously, we are aware of the label that we have of Ireland's worst hurling team.
Are they fucking smoking?
Oh, Gar.
Yeah.
But with Gar's help, we're confident that we can finally win a hurling match.
I think you're the man to end this losing streak. Don't let me down.
Gar.
Ruby.
You have a beautiful woman like that coming up to ask you on a date.
No, I know you're busy. I just wanted to come and ask you if you wanted to come to a Halloween party.
I don't want any Eve making a show of me at Ruby's party, okay? Everyone loves a good comeback, Gar. No, you're useless. You're shite.
Gar, who the fuck is this bitch?
You piece of fucking shit.
Gar fucking Campion, boy. Gar Campion.
Fantastic trailer, Tony, isn't it? And I mean, it sort of goes back to what you were talking about earlier on. You managed to, like, Diceman are a great production company, but you pulled together some fantastic actors in there. So you've got Mario in there, you've got John Kenny's in there, David McSavage is in there. I mean, how did you get all these fellas together for an independent feature film?
Yeah, that was the main thing for me was, I think a lot of people, when you're watching a low budget feature, they'll let you away with certain things in the production. I think, you know, if everything is not exactly Hollywood style, if you like, but what they won't let you get away with is amateur performances. Is how I feel about it. Mainly because that's kind of how I watch a movie. You know, I don't really put so much into what the actual production looks like myself. But if I see a performance that's not honest, that's not up to the level, I suppose, of me paying my money to watch a film, then it's kind of all for an out, you know. So I knew I had to have a strong cast, and I also knew that, like, my ambition was to get this where it's gotten, you know, to get to the cinema, to get to a streamer, like it's on Amazon Prime. That was my level that I wanted. And I knew if we had a stellar cast, a well-known cast, it would attract eyeballs as well, you know. So there was a business end to this as well for me. How did I get them? Listen, I've been doing stand-up, I suppose, for 15 years or so. So I'd had experience in that, and somewhat of a reputation from that, and from the films and TV stuff that I'd done as an actor, and the web series itself. And, you know, I'd had fingers in a lot of pies in the entertainment business, I suppose, for a while. So I had somewhat of a credibility to me that I was able to reach out to people. I also knew some people, like Dave McSavage, for example. I'd opened for Dave. Oh God, I think I was probably 23 or 24. You know, I reached out to him. Hadn't seen him for years. He definitely didn't remember me, but I said, you know, we'd done some work together in the past. Would you be interested in doing the film? I passed him along the script, and, you know, he was in. John Kenny was the special one for me, because I grew up in the 90s in Ireland, where everyone had all the VHS copies of Unbelievable's work. And we grew up on that, you know, and Father Ted as well. Pat and John were such a big part of the supporting cast of Father Ted, you know. So I just was always infatuated with John. I thought he was just such an amazing performer. You know, his characters in Unbelievables always were the ones that grabbed me, and same thing in Father Ted. So I just needed to have John Kenny. That role was written for John. Like, there was never anybody else. Like, I remember we did a deck for this film in 2017, actually. I think we did the deck for, maybe before there was even a proper script. There was only an outline. And John remained throughout every single part of it. He's who I wanted. And I had no way of contacting him. I always slag John about this. He's like the Bill Murray of Irish entertainment. He doesn't have an agent. You have to try and get him somehow. And if you get him, you can pitch him and he might do your project, you know. So luckily, my own agent had a relationship with John, and reached out to him for me. And I remember I was sitting at home. We were only 10 weeks from production maybe, and still didn't have John. And I was watching the Today Show on RTE with my mom. Or, well, she was watching it, I should say. And she called me into the sitting room. She goes, "Oh, there's John Kenny. Isn't it a shame he won't do your film?" And I said, "Well, that's, you know, it's not that he won't do it. We just can't get him." And maybe half an hour later, my phone rang and it was John, which is just insane. You know, he's, I'm on my way home from RTE. Lorraine, your agent, is sending me on this script. Will we have a chat about it? Call up to the house tomorrow. And 24 hours later, I was in John's house. You know, it's crazy.
He's fantastic. I remember my background is theatre as well, Tony. So I can remember back in the 90s. I tell you when it was 1993. This is how far back it goes. I was in town. I was in Andrews Lane, the theatre in Andrews Lane, which you remember back in the day, you had an upstairs and a downstairs. The downstairs was the main theatre. The upstairs was the studio. I was doing a play called Hatchet by Hannah McGee, and John and Pat were doing Unbelievable downstairs underneath us. But those two guys were just unbelievable. They were doing 2 shows a day. You know, they were doing an 8 o'clock show, and they were doing a late night show at 11 or 12 o'clock. They were very generous. They used to bring us in. We'd finish Hatchet, and then we'd be straight down into the theatre. We'd be sitting down the back, heckling. But I was always amazed by John's energy. And, you know, the various different characters that he plays as well. He's just an incredible actor. He's been nominated for an award with us at Underground Cinema as well. For, you know, he's, you know, people think it's all comedy with John. You know, I've seen him in quite dramatic roles. He's a really, really brilliant character actor. It was great to get him in your film, Tony. A real that was a real coup to get him on board.
Yeah, that like I'm saying, Dave, like he to me was the main one. You know, he was the one. I think I could have settled for other people in pretty much any of the other roles, but if John hadn't have done the role of Billy Byrne, like Gar's coach and father figure, I honestly don't know where I would have went with it, because, you know, he just, as I said, I loved him as a kid, and now knowing him and being lucky enough to be his friend, you know, I love him even more. I just think he's incredible. And as you said yourself, like the Mario thing is really funny, because we had an opening to the film and it wasn't working, and it was nobody's fault. It was probably my fault. It certainly wasn't the actor who we had in that place's fault. I had this idea that it would be kind of a match of the day type studio, and we shot it in a big green room. And God, we tried all these different designers to design the studio, and it always looked wrong. It just didn't look right. And I had been offered a deal to bring back a podcast that I used to host a podcast for. My Head Is Wrecked with Tony Kelly, a mental health style podcast. And I was bringing it back in 2023. The movie was in the can almost. And well, no, it was in the can, but we were almost done with the edit. And I just wasn't happy with the opening. I just couldn't make it work. And I was speaking to Patrick Hawley, who produces Mario's podcast for Go Loud. He used to produce the Last Word with Matt Cooper. Patrick will be well known in entertainment circles in Ireland as well. And I was ringing Patrick about some advice about the podcast, and he said, "How's the Hurler going? I can't wait to see it." And I said, "You know, it's funny, we're stuck in this opening. I don't know what to do." And it just dawned on me. I said, "Would you think Mario might do it? And we could do it as if Gar is on Mario's podcast." And Patrick said, "Oh, I love that." He said, "Let me talk to Mario." And it was pretty much the same thing as John. Patrick pitched it to Mario, had shown him the poster and some of the stills that we'd released. And Mario just said, "Yeah, get Tony to contact me." And about, you know, I think it was a Friday after that, I was up having coffee with Mario, showing him a rough cut of the film. And he was all in. Mario was so generous with everything, you know. Even at the end of this month now, we're doing the Galway Comedy Festival together. We're doing the Comedians of the Hurler show. Myself, Mario, John Kenny, Carol Spain, and Stephen Ryan. You know, so Mario didn't just come on board doing a few hours. He's been with us the whole journey, you know, as part of the cast.
It's fantastic, the talent that have given up their time to help you out with this one. And this film is unique. It's a uniquely Irish story, you know. And I know you've just been in the States there recently, and I was just wondering, how do you think international audiences connect with the film's humor and the character of Gar Campion?
It's the web series was probably a bigger success in the States than it was here. There was something about the character that just resonated with people. I took great influence from 3 different comedians or comedy characters that I love when I was creating the character. One was David Byrne from The Office, which I think maybe 2 generations were influenced by. Alan Partridge, another kind of a cringe character. And there's a sitcom called Eastbound and Down, which is an American sitcom starring, I can't think of his name now. He's Danny McBride. He plays a guy called Kenny Powers, who's a disgraced baseball player. And the 3 of those kind of amalgamated into a pot, along with some people I know in real life, to make Gar. And I think that's maybe why it worked in the States. Now, I was very nervous about the movie in the States because the web series is 10 minutes, you know, it's whatever, you can either check in or check out. But being in Kansas City, where I had its American premiere at Kansas City Irish Fest a few weeks ago, I was back. I couldn't sit in the audience and watch it. I was sick. It was horrible. And I sat, I'll call it backstage, but I was just behind a curtain in the theater. I could hear everything. But from the moment it started, the laughs came, the kind of, the sympathy moments came. There was audible, you know, because Americans are kind of like that. But what I really loved about it was they laughed at the moments they were supposed to laugh, you know, and there was different laughs. They understood things a bit differently, but it was so cool to listen to a live audience reaction in a different country to it. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Like independent filmmaking, it's a roller coaster of emotions, you know, especially, you know, when funding is scarce and, you know, you're relying on, you know, local support. And well, what kept you motivated right the way through to push forward, you know, to shape the film?
I suppose it was the fact that this character, you know, I was doing it first as a kind of a character on stage and stand up a little bit, you know, and in workshops and stuff in the States in 2011, probably in Canada and the States, you know, so I knew there was, and people would react to it. And then I would do it kind of, you know, different radio bits and stuff. And then it became the web series, and that, like, I got cast in stuff because people had seen me do Gar, and I was like, there's something with this guy, you know. People were calling me Gar, people were heckling me in the street about stuff. This is going back in early internet days, you know. I'm talking 2013, and you may say, oh, early internet, but we didn't have Instagram really. You certainly couldn't upload videos, you know, and it was really just Facebook and YouTube. And I knew there was something in it, you know. People would be saying little phrases to me from quotes from the show, and then all of a sudden I started picking up awards, and like I got invited to Hollywood in 2015. I got nominated for this award. It's still going. It's LA Web Fest. It was the first web series awards dedicated to just web series. It was called the Oscars of web series. And I remember when the nomination came in, I kind of went, of course it's the Oscars of. But then, you know, when the invites came in and I was organizing the trip, it was on in Universal Studios in Hollywood, you know, and I was like, oh my God, this is serious. And, you know, even up to the ceremony, like, I kind of didn't take it seriously. I enjoyed the holiday and I was over there, and then all of a sudden I won Best Actor in a comedy for playing Gar. And I went, there really is something here, you know. And I think all these things kind of lent into the belief that I should keep going. And then when I wrote the script, and, you know, I would send out to different industry people I knew, and, you know, as I said, it was so many close calls with almost getting made, and everyone was so positive about it, and we're saying, like, you know, there's something in this. And then I guess, Dave, you know, it was lockdown, and it was bleak for me. I don't know what it was like for others. I saw some people the other day saying, oh, I'd love lockdown to come back. It was such chill vibes. For me, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a great time. And it's really all I had to cling on to during lockdown was the belief that I would eventually get this done. And thankfully it paid off.
During lockdown, so what we saw during lockdown, Tony, is some of the script writing was really, really polished. So nobody had nothing but time on their hands. So when people, you know, are doing short films or feature films, that there is a tendency to rush a film to try and get it into a film festival. So say, you know, the Galway Flat, Dublin International Film Festival, there's a bit of a race to get it made. And sometimes when you're rushing and racing, you can drop the ball a bit, and all of a sudden when you do to go to Galway or Dublin International Film Festival and look at it on the big screen, you'll be saying to yourself, I wish I had to change this. If I wish I had done it this way if I did, you know, wasn't racing. So during lockdown, people had more time. And did you find that I'm trying to put a positive onto a negative situation here, really, Tony? I'm just wondering, did lockdown in to a certain extent help you get that script ready, you know, for when you guys are ready to shoot?
Yeah, probably. I mean, as I said, I wrote the script, I believe, at the beginning of 2018 originally, and I studied screenwriting. That's where I started out. I went to film school in New York. I went to the New York Film Academy, and I majored in screenwriting. So that was my original craft, if you like. So I really just kind of put into practice what I'd learned 10 or 11 years before that, you know. But I'd had the script, as I said, and then I'd done the one-man show, and the one-man show was really well received. But again, going back to lockdown, the show closed its preview in Waterford on the 7th of March, I think, 2020. Yeah. So a week later, we went into lockdown. You know, there was plans to take it to the Fringe. There was plans to do a national tour and then take it to an off-Broadway theater in New York later on in 2020. And all of that got crushed as well. But I just remember when I think it was when the third lockdown was announced, maybe a little bit before that. It could have been in the second one. I just said, like, you know, I have time here. Let's just take it out and polish it a bit if I can, and change around a few things. And it definitely allowed me the time to do that. But I don't know. Like I'd had a lot going on during lockdown as well, but I think the script was there. I think it was what it was. So it was, I don't really want to be sounding like I'm patting myself on the back and saying it was there. It was,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was written, and I got to rewrite it. But I had to kind of get everything together in life, I think, first. But then once that was getting taken care of, it definitely gave me the shot in the arm to go, do you know what? Life is too short. Let's do it. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you did go and because we know that this was your first feature film. Now I know you've directed a lot of work before, but this was sort of your first feature. And I'm just wondering, what did this film teach you about yourself as a filmmaker?
I think definitely as a filmmaker, it definitely taught me the value of a good team, and it is an absolute team effort. Especially because I was the lead actor and the director. That was an almost impossible task, and it was really done out of necessity, nothing else. I had never had intentions of directing this film. It was really because, again, it was. I think it was April 2022, we originally did the initial shoot, and nobody was available because the world was opening up and everyone was taking on work because they hadn't been able to work, excuse me, for so long. So nobody who I trusted or wanted to do it was actually available. And because, Dave, we go back to the cast, Elva Trill, Sophie Vavasseur, David McSavage, Mario Rosenstock, John Kenny, all these people all happened to just be available in that 3-week period. If we had changed it any side of that, we started losing people, and that wasn't possible. And again, going back to my agent, she had said to me originally when I was on this search, panicking for someone to direct it, she goes, "You should just direct it yourself." And I said, "No, absolutely no way. I have to play this character." And then when it was coming down to the nitty gritty, we sat down and she said, "If you're on set playing this role of Gar that you've played for over 10 years at this stage, and a director starts making choices to your script and your character, it's going to get even messier. So get a good first AD, get a good crew, and just do it." And that's what I did.
Well, fantastic. Now, look, you've got your first feature film out of the way. So what's next? Are you going to continue with the Gar Campion story, or are you going to explore, other characters and other storylines?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more in Gar, I don't think I'm the only one. There's certainly some conversations that are being had at the moment about, do we continue with Gar? And the nature of the beast obviously is you can't really say too much about that. But there is certainly conversations going on at present about what's next for Gar. And I do think there's more there for that character, definitely. I mean, sports and hurling, the GAA, Irish diaspora, that's a never-ending string that you can pull at, Dave, But there is certainly other stuff that I'm looking at doing at the moment as well. I've been working on 2 different scripts with 2 different writing partners the last probably since January or so, and they're 2 totally different things to the Hurler, and even a complete kind of a disconnection from comedy. So, but look, I suppose the thing is, Dave, I made my first feature, I wrote and directed it, but at the same time, we're not like a Hollywood machine here in Ireland that you prove yourself and someone is there to write you a check for 50 million to make your next one. It isn't the case. You make it does well, great. You might get funding or something to do another one, but it's really just the case of, you do it, you prove yourself, and you kind of go back to the back of the line then and start from scratch. That's kind of the way it is in Ireland, because we're such a small country,
Yeah. Well, look, Tony, you've done an absolute fantastic job. Anybody that manages to put together an independent feature film, I have an enormous amount of respect for, and I think it's great to see so many independent Irish films being released in the cinema now at the moment. I mean, if you go back about 5 or 6 years ago, you'd never see, the Hurler in, the likes of the Omniplex, the IMC. You just didn't see them. They're all Marvel films, So it's great. Recently, I think, Terry McMahon broke the mold years ago, 14 years ago with Charlie Casanova. And then, You know, we've seen over the years the likes of Paddy Slattery with Broken Lone. We've seen a fantastic film there just recently, is Maurice O'Carroll's Swingbout in cinemas as well. So it's great. And there's definitely an audience for it. I think you'd agree in it, Tony. You know, I mean, you got a 6-week run out of your film in the cinema. So people do, you know, there is definitely an audience there for independent Irish film.
Well, this is it, like, and it's not just even in the cinema. Like when you take our launch then onto streaming and Amazon Prime, our opening weekend on Prime, we were the #1 film in the country, you know. So it's, I remember taking a screenshot and sending it to Owen, my distributor, and just going like, look at this, you know. We were #1. Russell Crowe's new film was #3, and The Boys, the TV show, was #2. Like, there's 100% an appetite. It's now been proven. You know, there's no argument to be had anymore around it.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant time for independent cinema at the moment. It's booming at the moment. We've screened this year at Underground Cinema. Now we've screened, I think the season that you've been involved with, Tony, is 165 films. You know, and they're all great. Our award ceremony is coming up next month. Yeah. Where we were going to wish you all the very best of luck, Tony. Like, to get a Rising Star nomination is fantastic. That recognized. That nomination recognizes somebody that, you know, is put their heart and their soul into it, and they're very, very passionate. And our panel recognized you know, how important the film is to you and how important, you know, you are within the industry. I think just congratulations. It's a fantastic achievement to get a nomination like that.
Look, I'm glad you brought it up, because again, I'm really hesitant to ever really give myself a pat on the back. But like, to be honest, when I saw that nomination, not to take anything away from, geez, obviously to be nominated for Best Independent Feature Film is incredible, obviously, and it's a team thing. But just for myself personally, to be nominated for the Rising Star Award just meant so much to me. I've been trudging the roads, I suppose, for 15 or 16 years now, you know, taking on every job that I could, and you know, doing stand-up and acting and writing and producing. And you know, as I said, you know, I could have given up on this in 2017 or 18 when I got knocked, you know. And then during COVID, you know, look, listen, it's highly publicized. I've spoken about it in the national papers. I ended up in rehab in 2020, you know. Could have given up then as well, but the Hurler really got me through. I remember sitting in the treatment center in Wexford and just writing in the back of a journal that they gave me, you know, the Hurler, make the Hurler, bring it to cinemas, make it a success. I wrote those 3 lines in a treatment center in Wexford the day I went in, and that got me through the 30 days in there, you know, and I came out there going, I'm going to do this, you know. So as I said, look, the movie itself getting the nomination for Best Feature is obviously unbelievable. Just I suppose selfishly for me, the Rising Star thing just meant so much to me. It really did.
Well, congratulations, Tony. It's well deserved. So that's it, Tony. We're going to wrap it up. Listen, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. We can't wait to see what you got in the pipeline. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I'm delighted that you had me. It's a pleasure to do this, and I'm really looking forward to the night, then the awards night as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It'll be great to catch up. So thanks, Tony, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Dave.